Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affairs Analysis for 1st July 2020, and these are the articles we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled Making Trade More Digitized. So this article is in the context of the growing call for digitization of Indian trade. If you take a look at Indian trade and Indian customs, generally at ports there are a lot of manual checkpoints. What happens as a result of these manual checkpoints, especially in the present context, is it involves physical movement of goods from one place to other place through a manual intervention, which increases the risk of this pandemic. So before this as well, there has been a lot of calls for digitization of the trade system, especially in port management. As a result, especially during this pandemic time, India has definitely moved towards more digitization to reduce this manual interface, so that manual touching of goods is avoided. India is digitalizing its bills of lading and other trade documentation. There are certain workflows which are involved in clearance of goods from one particular port to warehouse and from there to the final customer. So all this workflow is being digitized using a blockchain technology. So this blockchain platform is a part of its electronic port community system. Thus by doing so, it joins with a growing call across the industry for digitization, both to improve port operations and to address the challenges created by global pandemic. So there is an association called Indian Ports Association, and there are various trade bodies in the Federation of Indian Logistic Association called FILA. So both these bodies emphasize the importance of digitalization to the shipping industry and also to the government officials. India was one of the country which was accused of very cumbersome red tapeism because of the customs clearance and stringent measures and long period of time taken for clearance of goods from ports to the final customer. So as a result, India was asked to sign this trade facilitation agreement of WTO. After a long time and in a bid to improve our ease of doing business, the government has finally ratified that in April 2016, and to give effect to this agreement, a lot of measures were taken by the government. Some of them include direct port entry, direct port delivery, radio frequency identification system, single window interface for facilitating trade. All these were aimed at reducing the time and cost of clearance. So the port community system was aimed at seamlessly integrating all maritime trade related activities. So that is the understanding we should have. So what this pandemic has essentially done is, whatever we have built up all this while, we have actually ensured that this pandemic acts as a catalyst and speeds up the digitization process. Similarly, there is also one important piece of information with respect to preliminary examination. The initiative E-Sanchit. This is an initiative which was launched to reduce the human interface while verifying indirect tax related documents. Because of all these measures, what actually happened was, in the ease of doing business index, especially there is a parameter called trading across borders. On this aspect of trading across borders, India's rank has improved significantly, and we have achieved 68th rank in 2020. This is a significant improvement where India stood above 100. So with the current crisis, ports across India demand a greater lead in trade facilitation measures. So this is the need of the hour. How do we ensure that the movement, release and clearance of goods is fast? So where are the areas where we can improve? That is to understand what are the gaps in our electronic governance implementation and the drive for digitization. So the first area where we have to concentrate is the effective implementation to avoid any sort of delays, because most of the goods can be perishable. It is very important to ensure that timely dispersal of these goods and to ensure that the customer receives the goods on time should be the highest priority. A lot of delays are because of the glitches in our software and its implementation. The digitization drive should be penetrated more into the officials as well, so that they adapt to the online mode of governance. Second one is customs clearance is subject to various agencies inter-coordination. Now the coordination is absent when all the stakeholders are not on a single platform, and this has been one of the reason why there was a lot of delay. So all these are practical reasons which can be understood only when we understand the nuances and issues of the traders. They are not as big as the other problems, the structural problems. It is just a matter of political will to implement these measures. The third one is, even after implementing these electronic governance measures, lack of training to the officials who are used to manual mode of working has been hampering the success of these initiatives. So there is an urgent need to train the officials on a continuous manner, and also there is a need for a support team to help these officials in times of crisis, especially like this, because work from home is an option that is not available to government officials. So this will restrict the optimal utilization of digital platforms. So that is the gist of this article. The second article for the day is taken from the Live Mint, and it is titled "An Education Model That Best Suits for the Realities We Face." So this is in the context of the pandemic induced lockdown and the impact that it has on the education of children and our future generations. So the most common form of adaptation is online education by almost all the educational institutions. So this online education has raised a debate about inequality. There is a visible digital divide in our country. What do you mean by digital divide? Digital divide basically means that a section of the population is not able to access internet, and therefore there is a shortfall in accessing education, and there has been a lot of dropout rates for this academic year. So what this article is trying to highlight is, we have to be grateful for the fact that technology is aiding and allowing us to continue our online education, but at the same time we also have to bring those people on board who are left behind because of this new form of remote learning. Apart from this obvious reason that is stopping the effective education of children, there is another aspect even to those who can access to internet. That is, students in the present form of pedagogy or the way education is imparted, one of the most significant aspect is synchronous learning. What is this synchronous learning? They learn from one another in a physical environment, and schools are trying to recreate that synchronous form of learning. How are they trying to do that? Through online live classes. So what this live classes do is, it is trying to recreate that synchronous learning where students of different aptitudes, all of them come together live on a particular time, and all of them are learning the same thing in the same amount of time. Now we have to recognize that even in normal schooling system, this is a very difficult proposition to achieve, because different students have different aptitudes for a particular subject. Now unless and until we are giving them the time they need to understand the subject individually, we will not be in the best position to handle them. So this has been one of the biggest problems of normal pedagogy as well, and that is where a lot of online advocates or educators who wanted to push this agenda of online education emphasized upon, that is asynchronous learning. So this form of asynchronous learning recognizes the fact that different students have different time periods to grasp a subject. So it gives them the facility and feasibility to address these concerns by allowing the student to download the material and study at his own pace. After he studies, if there is any doubt, then the teacher should come on board and make necessary arrangements for that particular kid to understand the subject. So asynchronous learning, according to this author, can be just as effective provided we are learning to adapt. The present school curriculum is driven by a need to ensure that students interact with one another and their learning happens from one student to another. Now, it is a form of adaptation that in India and not just the educational institutions should adapt to a new mode of living. So, in this new mode of living, online education is not an option, it is a necessity to continue education. So, as long as we ensure that there is no digital divide and there is access to internet, asynchronous form of learning should be encouraged. The author says this because India does not have an option to stop educating their kids. We cannot afford to have a fall in the total gross enrollment ratio, which we have struggled to achieve after a lot of years through Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and various other initiatives. We cannot afford to lose out on all those gains. So we are not just talking about the private institutions, probably we can extend this facility even to the government institutions as well. So what this will ensure is we have to create a network of very good teachers who educate the kids in their vernacular medium or whatever medium they are comfortable with, and have a supporting infrastructure in place to address the needs of each and every student. That way we will be ensuring that a mentorship kind of a model is working in education, and it also empowers the student to think on his own. So most of the online courses like Khan Academy or Coursera, etc., they follow this kind of asynchronous model. So you can give your exams only at that particular point of time where you are feeling comfortable. So there will be peer review as well. So all these features should be incorporated in our everyday education as well. That way we will also be ensuring that life of teachers becomes easy. At the same time, it addresses the problems of the students and also ensures effective learning. So it is high time that our academic institutions adopt all these learnings from the open online courses that educate the masses. So this is the only way which can be effective in this present crisis. That is the gist of this article. That's it for the day. Thank you.